Hello and welcome to the following on podcast via YouTube or on podcast, funnily enough. I'm Jon Norman alongside Steve Harmison for the next 20 minutes or so, looking back at day one of the second test match between England and the West Indies. A far more competitive game, or rather day, than we saw at any stage at Lord's, but one that England will walk away from feeling they are on top. Bowled out for 416. There were runs for Duckett, for Brook, for Pope, who top scored with 121, for Stokes, for Smith, for Wokes. And we'll see tomorrow, won't we? West Indies used 7 bowlers, but that's because for the second match in a row, there was a little bit of a problem with Shamar Joseph, who had to walk off the field halfway through his 12th over. But essentially, a good day's cricket at Trent Bridge. Let us discuss. So, Harmy, where shall we start? Shall we start with the good fielding? Shall we start with the bad fielding? Shall we start with the runs that were left out on the field? Shall we talk about the runs that were scored? Or shall we start with Ollie Pope, who hit his 6th test century today? He was blessed along the way. A drop before lunch, a drop after lunch, an inside edge past the stumps, a few plays and misses. But essentially, he got on with the art of run scoring. He did so quickly, and he top scored today.
Yeah, he did. He batted beautifully. I think we have to start right at the very start. I think the toss.
Yeah. Were you surprised?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised. I was just, West Indies come back first. After what happened at Lord's, they just come back first. There was no rhyme or reason for West Indies to bowl first in that game.
They're just delaying things, though, aren't they?
Yeah. Other than making sure that you spend at least 3 full days in Nottingham. I mean, that's the only reason that they've bowled first. You can sort of understand. When you look at it, their biggest strength is their bowlers. Trent Bridge swings. They've been under cover for quite some time. I don't think there's been a huge amount of practice on the ground, as in the last sort of 48 hours leading into it. So I think between 9:30 and 10:30 this morning, the West Indies management team would have been finding every reason to bowl first and not many reasons to bat first. So I think because of that, and I think other than the first half an hour, 40 minutes, when Duckett was batted beautifully, you could probably see why that it wasn't a horror story decision. It wasn't like a Nasser Hussain in Brisbane. They bowled inconsistently in the first half an hour, 40 minutes, and then they dropped a couple of catches. And the sign of a good player, the sign of a really top player, is when you're possibly not as fluid with your movements. You get a couple of lives. You make the opposition pay, no matter what level, whether you're playing dog and duck, third 11, or whether you're playing first-class cricket, or whether you're playing test cricket. And Ollie Pope, still, a lot of people question whether he's the right man to bat at number 3. He was still frantic, but he got given chances. And when you're given a chance, this kid can make big hundreds. And he made a big 100. He made 100 today, which it was pleasing to see.
The cliche that I'm sure has been rolled out today is they left some runs out there. They did, didn't they?
They did.
You know what? At one point, I went downstairs to get myself a cup of tea. It was during an advert break on talkSPORT, and I thought to myself, last summer, I couldn't miss a single delivery of what was the best Ashes series since 2005, and not quite getting those vibes from this Test series. I'll be honest with you, Harmy.
No, I'm not, but I'm also saying, right, England have got 416 all out.
Yeah.
Last summer, England would have been out for 250. England would have been out for 250. I mean, the West Indies Australia wouldn't have dropped them catches. I know the bowling attack is a little bit different, but there was no way they would have dropped the catches. I sat next to you for the majority of the week at Lord's, and we sat there at the end of it, and I couldn't bring myself to criticise these West Indies players. I really couldn't, because of it's not their fault, it's their system's fault. I kept bringing myself in. But today I'm criticising them, because it's like if you look, in talkSPORT we have to talk in footballing terms. I mean, it's like a lower league team playing a top of the league team. The one thing you cannot you cannot sort of argue with. You can argue with the quality, you can argue with the quality of the players, the quality of the movement and everything that goes with it. You can't argue with the quality of the endeavour, the fight, the effort and everything that goes with it. And the fundamentals of cricket is fielding and catching. You might not be as good a batter, you might not be as good a bowler as the England cricket team. But boy, you can catch, boy, you can run around in the field, boy, you can make sure that you do not make mistakes. Far too many catches were dropped, far too many missed fields. And I mean, that has an effect on the bowlers. And I think all that today is why England didn't get bowled out for probably 300 and England got just short of 420.
The Final Word Daily podcast, it's just been recorded over there. You're probably picking up on it. Oh, and also like the hover's going off as well. It's all going off here at Trent Bridge. I'm just going to shut this window. Okay, 1 second. Keep it down out there. Where were we, Harmy? Yeah, okay. So look, let's we talked about Ollie Pope, we talked about the poor fielding from West Indies. Let's talk a little bit about their bowling, because Jayden Seales is somebody who last week I thought he played the game like a guy that's played some cricket, right?
Yeah.
Unlike Shamar Joseph and Azari Joseph, which Azari's played a bit. This test match, it was quite interesting because his first 2 overs were absolutely all over the place. And then Shamar Joseph, who last week had 2 spells of cramp and again today had to go out off the field. I'm shocked he's playing, to be honest. We talked about this. But I thought he bowled really well. He bowled like a guy that had a few overs under his belt. I thought he really tested Ollie Pope. He then got rid of Ben Duckett. And I thought, we're finally seeing a little bit of the Shamar Joseph that we've all been talking about. Then he went off the field. And then I thought that actually Jayden Seales bowled pretty nicely after that horror couple of overs to start off things. And we saw today, and this is a team that did bowl England out, remember, at Lords. And they've done it again today. So they've actually performed pretty well. And if not for a few of those catches going down, then, you can knock probably 70 runs off that score.
Yeah, you can. And I think there was a passage just before lunch where they grabbed the initiative back. Yeah. I mean, Duckett, Ben Duckett batted beautifully. He looked as though he was, there was rumours that he might miss this test match for the birth of.
Well, he played like his missus was, about to.
Yeah, just had the phone call.
He had to get to the hospital, didn't he? When Zach Crawley was out third ball, I thought you should flip those 2 round. Duckett, it's kind of like, all right, I'm off now, lads. Sorry, I just had the call.
Yeah, it did look as though he was batting as though somebody has just tapped him on the shoulder and said, she's 2 centimetres dilated. You've got to go. But he
bats like that all the time, doesn't he?
He does bat like all the time. And I think he is so difficult to bowl to when he's on that the West Indies didn't get it right. They're nowhere near got it right. You've got to bowl at Ben Duckett, like a little bit like you bowled at Adam Gilchrist. You've got to get him playing with a straight bat. The minute he plays with a straight bat, you've got a chance of causing him some issues, missing inside edge or getting inside edge on the stumps, outside edge, and he nicks. The minute you give him a sort of horizontal bat or a 3/4 bat, boy, you're in trouble. You're not in trouble. You're just not stopping him from scoring runs. He scores so, his hands are so good where even if you put a fielder in the deep, his ability to play it late or play it early with that sort of horizontal 3/4 bat, bang, he can miss that field. That fielder's not in the game. He can take the mickey out of that fielder. So you've got to get the ball up there and you've got to get him playing with a straight bat to cause him any sort of problems. And the West Indies didn't do that. They did wrestle the initiative back just that last sort of 40 minutes before lunch. And there was times where, again, you just feel as though the pressure's building for the West Indies. And then all of a sudden, a drop catch, a misfield, and you just see the body language of the shoulders just gone. Slumped, here's where he's going to get in, he's going to carry on. And you've seen that happen. I thought Shamar Joseph bowled nicely. You're right, I think how he's playing, I'm not so sure whether they feel as though we've got nobody else in the squad. The one thing, that potentially now could go to Edgbaston is Sinclair bowled really nicely. He's a batter as well. And Moti becomes, fit again from being unwell. That will have been a little bit disruptive. You might see them play 2 spinners up the road at Edgbaston. But I think all in all, I think Seals came back nicely. Alzari Joseph looks as though he's just so out of rhythm. And you see Alzari bowl, he's beautiful when he's on. You know, when he steps up and he's top of his mark and he lets go, he's like the man on air. He just bounces on air, bang, 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 beautifully. It's a lovely stride pattern. Nice, easy action. At the minute, he looks as though his left foot's on his right foot and his right foot's on his left foot. He really does look as though he's completely out of sorts. But he's your most experienced, well, him and Jason Hole are most experienced bowler. So, look, it could have been a hell of a lot worse for the West Indies. They could have been staring down a barrel of being battened for the last hour and a half of that contest if they were a little bit more ruthless. But England made them pay. And just a little small sample size when everybody's going on about Ben Foakes. Ben Foakes out the team. Ben Foakes is out of the team because of what's just happened. A little bit of what's just happened today. The way Smith came in and battered, the way he came in and battered with Stokes, that tempo of what Ben Stokes needs to keep him going, to get him going, and take the game away from the opposition. There was a little sample size, not a massive one, but a little sample size of why Jamie Smith is being brought in the team over, or why they like that role over the Ben Foakes, somebody who bats for a long period of time, holds an end up, but don't really go anywhere. I thought Jamie Smith batted nicely at Lords, and he's continued again today. So it's not a massive partnership, and it wasn't out of this world, breathtaking big score. But I think we just got a little bit of an injection of pace.
Yeah. Which
I think going forward, if that relationship builds, I remember Andrew Flintoff batting with Geraint Jones in that sort of 2004, 2005 period. I mean, the quick scorers, good runners between the wicket, brilliant. When it comes to that, friendship was very, very good on the field. And if Stokes and Smith have that, then that just takes England from being all out for 350 to 450 or even above with tired bowlers. That's winning contests, that's winning big series. And that is why Rob Key, Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes went for the Smith over Ben Foakes.
Yeah, well said. At the moment of the day, the Sinclair somersaults. I was listening to TMS comments actually. Varney was saying he wouldn't expect to see you do that.
No, I don't think Ashley Giles was getting over there either.
No, I don't know if it might have been Norcross. Yeah, your name and Ashley Giles' name were both mentioned as potentially players that wouldn't do a backflip double somersault after taking a wicket. But
he did it really well, mate.
He did. We've seen signs from West Indies, the celebrations from that run out. Louis running out Shea Bashir from deep point with 1.5 stumps to aim at. We saw another one. There was a catch, wasn't there, that led to a ridiculous celebration. And we saw that again today. So, West Indies sides that have arrived here in the past have been criticised for throwing their wickets away, for not caring. I don't quite go with that quite so much. I think that's a little bit of transporting. But essentially, what we've seen from this West Indies side is that when they succeed, they celebrate and they care. So we just need to hopefully see a little bit more of that in a more competitive day tomorrow. How do you see day 2 of this going? How you did say it's, that's quite an outfield. It's a smallish pitch. We know how suited to run scoring Trent Bridge is, but it wasn't quite as easy as all that, was it? How do you see things progressing tomorrow?
I can see the thing I got with a wicket, and just finish off what you're saying there. I think there's a lot of togetherness in this West Indies side that I've ever seen a West Indies squad before.
Yeah.
Just unfortunately, without kicking them, they're just not good enough. But their togetherness in where they can build from, I think there's a huge platform to build from with this group if they stick it together and go forward. So that from a togetherness, they want to win for the West Indies. There's a bit of caring about it. I quite like this group. It's just like, I think technically and I think ability-wise, they're just not quite up to Test match cricket. I think where we see tomorrow going, look, the pitch was a little bit damp. The pitch was, so you can see why the West Indies did think about and went on the bowl. There was a little bit of indentation. All of a sudden, if this dries out, I don't think there's any rain forecast. If the sun's out first thing tomorrow, it will swing. It always swings at Trent Bridge. And if England, I don't see England getting the ball in a scattergun area like what the West Indies did with a new ball. And if England can use the new ball, it's a new ball ground, Trent Bridge. It's a new ball ground with when it's dry and it's abrasive, then it reverses. I don't see it reversing this week because I think the lushness and the amount of rain we've had. But I think England will pitch it up. I think Wokes will have a lot of fun on this surface. I think if we get the Chris Wokes out of last summer, I think he could challenge, because that sort of between 4 and 6 meter length, which is, I think the West Indies didn't bowl as much in this contest, and when they did do it, it did something for them, and they were rewarded with chances created. That's the area I would imagine Wokes would with the same, with a pace and the velocity, and Atkinson the same. So I'm encouraged about where England could take tomorrow. If they get new ball wickets, I think we might see much of a muchness of the same from Lords, which would be England bowl the West Indies out relatively cheaply.
Okay, I'm going to give the counter to that. I don't think Chris Wokes bowled particularly well at Lords, so I'll be interested to see how he goes. No Jimmy Anderson, of course. Gus Atkinson had a miracle first test. How does he back that up? That'll be interested to see. And Mark Wood comes into this test match with very little red ball cricket behind him, and with a relatively unsuccessful, would you say, T20 World Cup, India Series, and ODIs. Bashir didn't even bowl at Lords. So I'm just going to counter that maybe it won't all go quite as smoothly for England on day 2 as it did on days 1, 2, and 3 at Lords. But hey, the Hobby's back, by the way.
Yeah, I heard something which was, well, I know I'm always not critical of Mark Wood, but I'm always wary of Mark Wood's record and the amount of overs he's bowled, wickets he's taken, and in his career games he's played. But I think he's only bowled something like 108. I think others said at the end of play, he's bowled 118 overs competitively since the contracts came out. So that's probably 9 months of cricket. 9 months of cricket, and I think he's only bowled about 120 overs of competitive cricket, and that predominantly has been white ball. Trip to India, slow pitches. We know how we can go from 0 to 60 in no time at all and go through the gears. I mean, go from first gear to sixth gear and still keep accuracy, venom. I think he might have a day tomorrow. I really do. I think we'll see Wood and Wokes have the day they had at Edgbaston last year, because it's Jimmy Anderson gone. It's now who's going to take over. We saw them come in to the Ashes last year. I think it's so important. Yes, they're in their 30s and they're getting towards their mid-30s, but they have to stamp the claim on this team, on this test team now. I must say about Mark Wood playing red ball cricket, and he should be playing, and that's where we should be channeling all these energies now. Wood and Wokes potentially could take England forward over the course of the next 15 test matches, and I think we'll start well tomorrow.
We shall see. There'll be updates on talkSPORT throughout the day, and Harmy and I will be back for following on after play as well. Thanks for listening. Head over to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel if you're listening on podcast. Head over to the talkSPORT podcast channel if you're watching on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. But for now, thanks for listening or watching. Following on
AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.